Okay, working with files. So we're going to start talking about consolidation. This particular example is consolidate data. Somebody asked me one time in the level 1 class, is they basically said, do all your sheets have to be symmetric in order to add them up across sheets? And my answer, well, I didn't know how to answer the question because one is if I said yes, that they have to be, then I'd be lying, of course, because use the consolidate feature to do things with, they don't have to be symmetric. If I said no, I'd be lying. If I said yes, they have to be symmetric, I'd be lying. But if I said no, then they're going to turn to me and say, well, could you show me? And I really don't want to show them. Level 1 class. We should be talking about this kind of stuff in level 1. But we will show you now. So we're going to do consolidate data. So go through some procedures. You can walk through the procedures if you like. We'll go through and just open it up and do it. So we're going to open up a file called consolidate. Now I have several consolidate files out here. I've got a consolidate one. There's one called consolidate 1, 2, 3, 4, one called consolidate AB, and one called consolidate worksheets. So the idea of the consolidation is you can also consolidate things across workbooks. So that's what those other examples are for. I'm just going to use this one called consolidate worksheets because you can get your hands around it, you can understand how to make it consolidate things across multiple sheets. You'll get the idea of how the program works. I've had people use this before for actually comparing databases, by the way. So they can use the consolidate sheet to compare two database jobs to find out where the differences are, things of that nature. Okay, so here we have all regions, a north, a south, and a central. And you know that north is in a different position than south. South actually has a bunch of gaps in the middle. Look at that. And central is sort of also in a different, but that looks like on C13. And this one's on C9. So they're all kind of in different positions. The fields are even different. See, the fields are in different orders. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the labels to identify the record, and that's how we're going to consolidate things up. Okay, so we're going to start with an all regions. This is where the answer is going to go, so we have to make sure we select all those. So make sure you don't select the B over here because it might mess it up. So just make sure you're selecting C through G, and then we're going to put the answers right in here based on the consolidation of these two items, these two labels. And so now we're going to go to our consolidate. You go to data. It's one of these little icons up here. I forget which one it is. There's flash fill, remove duplicates. There it is, the top one. So it's consolidate. So hopefully you're with me at this point. And we're going to say consolidate. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to reference, looks like we're going to add them together, but we're going to add in north, south, and central and add them to this particular add references. So we'll click here, go to north, highlight those labels and the data area, and you're going to add that range to the consolidation. We're going to go to south. You're going to highlight those labels, and you're going to add that to the consolidation. You're going to go to central, and that's in a different position, of course, and you're going to add that to the consolidation. So you should have central, north, and south in the consolidation, and you want to choose all these options on the bottom. I'm going to use the top row as the reference, the left column to reference the data the other direction, and we're going to create links between them. So this is how we're going to use this top row and the left column as the way to consolidate or identify the record we're actually modifying. So hopefully you've got that okay. You guys seem to be keeping up all right. So I'll say okay, and there's my answers. Okay, so if I look at this marketing employees of 19, so let's go through and change a few records to see if it's going to actually update it. So if I go to North, here's employee marketing. If I put 4 in there, then all regions went to 20. Okay. If I go to South, you see market employees is in a different position. So if I put in 100 in there, in the marketing employees, sure enough, it went up. See? If I go to Central, look for market employees and put in another 100 in there, all regions, it went up. So we're so these things are not symmetrically in the same position. And so I had people ask me about this, and I've had several people come back and tell me how they've used it. I had one person had these databases, and he had like 2 different versions of the database. And the problem is that one database, the newer version, has more records than the older version. And so he wanted to compare the databases to see what records were not in the other database. But the records are all in a different order, see? So in other words, it's sorted differently. And so they have 2 different sorts associated with them. So he used the left column as the key field to identify the record, and then the top row, of course. And then he was able to use a count function. He used a count function, count the records. So if the record was 2, then it was located in both databases. If the record was 1, then it was located in just one of the databases. That way they could actually compare 2 or 3 or 4 if they wanted to. And if the numbers were 4, then that record appeared in all 4 databases. So he was able to actually look at that and compare those 2 databases to see the differences. Because it would be difficult to sort that and try to shake out of it where the differences were because they're such different layout. And so that was what he was looking for. Interesting. I never thought of using it that way before, but that's something he was able to use this for that particular purpose. So that's what your consolidation is. If you did go into the consolidation and you said the word browse right there, then the browse would actually open up multiple files. So see, we have this one called consolidate one file. Then you would specify what cells you want to consolidate from that one. Then you can go to consolidate 2 and consolidate 3, and you can consolidate that record into a single one. So you can actually do this from different workbooks too, which is what I use it for. All right, so that's your consolidate feature. Okay, other file manipulation features. So I went through these examples of these in the book about these different workbooks. So I went through step-by-step examples. External links. So we need to talk about external links, how external links work. And let's see, I have an example here. I don't know if I have an example or not. We have some examples. We'll probably just make up our own. So I'm going to close a few sheets out because I'm getting too many open. I'll close them off and don't save them. With this next feature, which is the external links, it's nice to have just a couple open. Now let's just open 2 blank files. Okay, so we're going to create a blank file. And we're going to save this file up. And we can call it file save as. I'll call one master. How's that sound? Save as. I'm going to save it somewhere where I can find it again. 1-3 folder. I'll call this my master file. The master file then is going to contain the data and then we're going to save another one off, go to file save as, and we'll call this external link, just so we can keep the file straight. And then we're going to open up both files, and we're going to go to View, Arrange All. So I want to see the 2 files side by side. Okay, so this one up here is my external link, and here's my master. So my master sheet, I'm going to have a number in here for 400. This is my actual number that I'm using, the 400. And then I want to take my external link and I want to link to that number. I want to use that number. This could be a budget total for the controller. And this could be the individual budgets. I want to pull the controller's final numbers into my worksheet so I can get my budget. If those numbers change, then I'll have that information, real time. As it changes, I'll be able to get that. So I'll just simply press equals, and I'll click on that number, and it does a reference to it. So again, change this master file to 500, then it updates that number. I go to 600, then it's going to change the number again. And so that's what external link is. It's just a link across multiple workbooks. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to close off my external link, save it off, and I'm going to change my number. I'm going to make it 1,000. But the external link is closed right now. So I'm going to save this file off. I'm going to close it. But now I'm going to open up my external link. So I made a change to the master file. It's closed. Now I'm going to open up the external link. And how's the external link going to know that the master file was changed? If you click on external link, it opens up and it comes with a little message that says, warning, you want me to automatically update this information. You say enable the content. It says 600 here, but the minute I enable it, then it will update it to the number. So you don't have to have the same files open at the same time. Now, many years ago, this used to be a kind of a flaky feature. It didn't really work real well. Sometimes you'd open the file up and it wouldn't update the file. So they created an interface for us to force the update. There's this option called Edit Links. So when it was in the flaky mode, they actually created this interface that allows you to see, here's the status is unknown. If I say update value, the status was okay because it was able to update it okay. So if your files are located on different drives, for example, if one drive is down, it's not going to connect to it. And this little interface will tell you that whether it's able to connect or not. So if the number doesn't look correct, then you can come over to this little edit link and you can do a force and update to see if there's a problem with the connection between the two files. I try to keep the files either on the same folder or at least on the same drive. If it's down, they're both down. You know what I mean? Don't put one on the C drive and one on the share drive or something like that. So keep them kind of in the same spot. And you can also change the source. So if the master file changed from master file version 1 and then goes to version 2 or version 3, then that doesn't update the link. We're still looking at the version 1. As that file changes, you could change your source here and have it redirect it to the latest version. So that's what this little interface is for. It works really well. I haven't really seen a problem lately, but there were some problems in the original design of this. And then that's why they created this interface to kind of, so you can status to make sure that it's being updated properly and check the status at that point. Lately, it's been like the past 10 years, I haven't really seen a problem with it at all. So it doesn't seem to be flaky at all, but it works and it's kind of nice and you can update information. I had somebody one time that actually wanted to create an image of another workbook. So they actually went in and did a reference and then they used the fill handle and they filled it down, but they had to go in and actually change the absolute referencing off out of that field. And then they were able to take this field and fill it down and highlight and pull all the numbers off of the other worksheet. they wanted to have an image of the master file. The reason why is because each division or each department might have a different, like a budget, but then the master file, which is the master file, you want to have a reference to all three workbooks, so all three departments worksheets. And so I can create 3 sheets on the bottom and reference that data to this external links. Questions on that? Tap edit links, create workspaces. Now this is something that was in 2010 that they removed from this product. And the reason why is because they changed the way that Excel was functions. And in the 2010 product, one of the problems is when you had dual monitors and you opened up Excel within Excel within Excel, then it's actually in one image. And you can't pull one Excel open file to the other screen. But how you had to overcome that is you had to actually start Excel multiple times. So if you open up Excel, open up your file to the Start button, and you open up another image of Excel, then you open up another file, and you open up another image of Excel, you open up another file. You have 3 basic images of Excel running. Then you can pull them apart and put them on different monitors. So they changed that somewhere along the line there, 2013 or something like that. So now every file you open opens up a new image. And as a result of that, this feature sort of broke and it didn't work anymore. So this is something that was in 2010. And this allows me to actually rearrange those on the screen, on one screen, all side by side. But this dealt with a single image type of strategy. All right, so now we've got application. This is your get data step, and we're going to go through this in great detail, just talking about a lot of import exporting. But in this get data step is a new feature that's been added. I kind of mentioned that earlier today, in the very beginning of the class. In the 2010 interface, this is what it used to look like. You'd have an interface in the data ribbon tab. You'd have an access interface, a web interface, a text interface, and some other sources you can pull. And what this basically did was imported information into Excel from these external sources. It basically grabbed everything. And you see I kind of put those words in here somewhere. You see, it imported directly without the ability to filter the amount of information. Except then you import everything and then you have to delete what you don't want. So basically that's kind of the way it worked in 2010, is you had to kind of get rid of the stuff that you didn't want. Now, in 2010, our databases were like 10 years old. So we had 10 years worth of data. Today, we've got 20 years worth of data that we've been gathering. Our databases are now massive. That's too much information to bring into Excel. So this get data step allows me to filter this out or reduce this information. So we'll go into this in a few minutes. We'll get into this in a little greater detail. Let's talk about some of these other import features. To do a text file, you can actually go through and use a delimiter file to actually import things in. So we'll go through and do that a little bit. Let's see if I can find one out there. Go to Excel, file open, browse. I probably put some files out here. Now you have to change it. See, the default is all Excel files. So we want to change that to all files. And we can see if there's a common delimited file out here. There's one called debug log, text spaces. There's a couple out there, but this is one. We'll probably use this text-based one. So this is probably a text file that's using the space delimiter. So if I open up that text file with space delimiter right into Excel, this is a file that has name, department, salary, but it doesn't know where the fields start and stop. So in this case, I can use this delimiter file. They're not a fixed distance, they're not exactly the same. But you can use a space in here as a delimiter, and then it found this breaking point. Most databases these days will allow you to export to an Excel file, because Excel is pretty well supported. But if you can't export to an Excel file, you can always export to a text, either a space delimited or comma delimited. Then you can import that into Excel. So there are ways to get around that, but I'm finding that most databases will support an Excel export feature, so you won't have to do that in that way. Say next, finish, and it brings in those files and it splits them up into cells based on that delimiter structure. All right, so that's what the basic import is if you're just doing a file open. Now in export, you go to File, Save As, go to Browse. So to export a file, you can export a file to any file type out here. So one of the common ones is a comma delimited. So if somebody does not have an Excel interface on their database and you're trying to pull this into a database, then you can save it off as a comma delimited. Most programs support comma delimited files. But there are a lot of other file formats we can export it to. Of course, I've seen this open document down here. Some people asked me about that. PDF there, of course. Some of the old Excel file formats. There's the Excel 2007. So if somebody has an older version of Excel, not as much of a problem anymore, but and they won't be able to open the file because it's a newer version, you can save it off as an old version, and then they'll be able to open it. So again, when we transitioned from 2003 to 2007, there was more problems in that range. You can also save it as a macro enabled. We talked about that earlier. And looking to do a web, I've used half of these, but there's a lot in here, as you can see. But you might have to pull off to some, maybe somebody has a certain file format, they want it in a document, open doc format or something like this. So with an import and then export, you can import things in, but then you can also save as and export things out. So from an import and export, you can simply just open the file up like that to do that. In the Data tab, there are a few other options available too. So I can simply do it this way. Now I did this by doing a file open and opening the file directly into Excel, and it dropped into that wizard. Well, you can do the same thing here. You can say from a text file, and then you can actually pull that in, and it will go through the same process. Or from a website or from some table range. This is a table function. And recent data sources or existing connections. You can even pull things like out of like TD Ameritrade for stock data. There's ways you can pull that out of the website. You can go right to the website and say, I want to pull some information from the website, and you put in your stock quote, and you can do a refresh, and it will pull that stock quote into Excel whenever you do a refresh. And sometimes that data is not as updated as the live information, but it is a database that's out there that they post out there on the website, so you can pull that data if you needed to. I have some procedures that talked about that a little bit too, so if you're interested in that. But that's kind of the import-export features.